Welcome back to another interesting segment for Cutting Edge 2026. Today's story is about what happens when you refuse to shrink yourself to fit a room. Decades before, women in tech was just limited to a hashtag, and she was quietly living it, walking into rooms filled with men and building a successful career in an industry where women weren't initially welcomed. Joining us today is the lady who won Lifetime Achievement Award of the Year at the Women in IT Awards Asia, the chair for the Women's Directors Forum of SLID, and the first female chairperson of SLASCOM. She also won Sri Lanka's number one service brand 2024 at LMD's Awards Night 2025 on behalf of Dialogue Axiata PLC when she was the former CCO. Please join me in welcoming Sandra De Zoysa. Sandra, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today.
Firstly, I should start by saying it's an absolute honor for me to be sitting in front of you because you are like the epitome of women in tech. And that makes things very relatable for me. So, as someone who's starting off my career, so since we've spoken about the start, it takes us back to 1989 when
When I was your age, probably.
so you were the first female employee to join Celltell, and I feel like there's a very interesting story behind this. Would you like to share this?
Yes, certainly an interesting story going back to it's strange, you sitting there, I'm sitting here. You are looking to starting your career. I could be at the end of a corporate career, but I'm also starting off my entrepreneurial journey. So you and I are both at the same place, really. But going back to 1989. So there was an advertisement in the papers about something called cellular technology, mobile telephony company that was starting out in Sri Lanka, and so this is something that we've never heard of and a path never trod. And I kind of always like a challenge, so I said, "Hey, what's this new thing that's never been around? I'm going to apply." So I applied to the job. Back then, the Swedes are the ones that were doing the interviews. And I was selected for the job. So there was a team of market development executives, a whole bunch of males, and myself. And what happened next was, work was fine. We were sort of doing all the planning stage and all of that. And thereafter, the we recruited bosses for me who were Sri Lankans, right? They were also young, so I guess I sort of, when I look back, I don't really fault them for doing that. They felt like I kind of didn't fit in. They were saying, "Oh, this is a very technical product, and you're meeting CEOs in boardrooms, and you're like in early 20s, and they won't take you very seriously, and I don't think you should go out to these meetings and presentations. Why don't you sort of do this same job from the office and not really go out?" So I was super disappointed. I went back home. I was crying a little bit and told my father about it. And then he told me, "Are you sure you can do this job? So they think you can't. Are you sure you can?" So I said, "Yes, of course I can." And then he said, "Well, in that case, just stop sitting around and crying. Go fight for it." And then he said, "You won't always have me around to be coming back to, because you're an only child. You must learn to fight your way if you believe in something, strongly, and go back and fight and prove it. Show them that you can do it." Uh, so although I'm continued to stay there, and well, because I continued to stay, I built a super career, because back then there was no customer service function at all. And that's something I started out because they kind of wouldn't let me go out of the office. So I started a customer service function. And a little later on, a majority of the boys I worked with, they left. And then they badly needed people to like do market development, sales, and all that. And then they kind of offered me the job. They said, "Do you want to do it?" So I said, "Yes, most certainly." So when I started out, I found that I was a natural at it. I was good. I was actually doing better than the boys, achieving all my targets, making a lot more money than they were. And they were very friendly. They were all very helpful and all that. But they used to say, "Oh, if we wore a skirt, we would have been also been able to do, better sales as well." And they used to play the fool about it. So that was like my beginnings, and I'm glad that I stayed on. 3.5 years later, already at 24, the second company started out in Sri Lanka. Back then, it was called Call Link, and that was a Singapore telecom company. I joined straight away as the head of customer service and reporting to the managing director. So it was my big move.
Right. So I think that's a really inspiring story for because you mentioned how you were always up for a challenge, and that's a great takeaway for many young girls out there. And something that I found really interesting was the fact that your father was very supportive of your whole idea. And given Sri Lanka's cultural background, especially back in 1989 and even now, many parents focus on things like their daughter's marriage and may overlook on the education and career aspects. Things are changing right now, but there can be parents out there who are still clinging on to these ideas. What would you say to someone like that?
So, well, yeah, I mean, even for me, my mom, I think since I was 16 or something, must have been thinking about my marriage. And when I got to about 18, she probably really started thinking about it a lot. So I had this situation at home where my father was like super cool. He was like, you know, you don't have to focus on marriage, just be yourself, do what you want, pursue your studies, pursue your career, enjoy your life because this is the best time of your life, and that kind of thing, right? And my mom was all about, who is that boy? Who is he calling? Why is he calling? Who's his father? Who's his mother? What's his name? Where is he from? That whole situation, right? And then she was sort of saying that I should be looking at getting married before I get too old. And I think that kind of thing still goes on. But the difference is that old then must have been like before 25, and old now must be over 30, maybe 33, 35, I don't know, right? So it's kind of getting better, I would say. But the expectation in Sri Lanka of young girls in Sri Lanka getting married at a certain age, right? And then it's like, oh, if you get married after that, it's going to be difficult to have children. You won't be able to find a partner. Everybody good is taken, and that kind of story. I've heard a lot of this. So I keep telling all the young girls and boys, that I know, that you don't have to really focus on that. Um, Marriage will come to you when it does. You shouldn't have to go looking for it as if though that's the only option in life and that's the only thing you need to do, right? Um, Having said that, you could get married as early as 18 or not. It depends on when you found your right life partner, and you also know when you're ready. So, for instance, I had the same, being a mother, that's how it is, right? So, my mother expected me to get married at maybe 18 or something, and I got married at 25 because of that expectation. So, would have been nagged off a little bit, like from 18 to 25. And then I started kind of doing that at 25 to my daughter to say, like, nice if you can get married before 30. So I had extended the group. So at 30, I was like, oh my gosh, this child, why is she not getting married? Especially because she was already going out with a partner who, like for I think 5, 6, 7 years. So it was only natural that I wanted her to, but I didn't bother her, nag her about it at all. She actually got married finally last year in November, and that was at 31, or 32, I'm not sure even. Yeah, but that's okay, because she did it when it was right for her. And if I ever brought the topic up as well, she would say, Mom, I'm getting married. We have to do it when it's right for James and I, not for you. Which is so true, right?
Exactly.
Shouldn't have to be doing it for other people. You need to be doing it for yourself because this is your life. So, my advice is very simple. Whichever the time when it's right for you, do it. And in the meantime, married or unmarried, you should pursue everything that's possible in life in terms of career and having, maybe a side hustle, your your learning journey should never end also, because things keep changing so fast, and it doesn't really matter whether you're learning mainstream and also looking to sort of get a qualification, or you're also pursuing arts and fashion and something more interesting on that side, because today I think tech is infused into anything, any and every single um, discipline and everything that you can possibly do. So, yeah, so tech is a bit of a fundamental for anything and everything in life, whichever the career you decide to pursue. Yeah, so that's my advice.
Definitely. I think there's a lot of takeaways from what you just mentioned. The kind of personality a girl should develop since from a very young age. And we also touched upon the fact that, male employers or employers in general are a little hesitant when it comes to hiring women. I think that problem exists, especially in a developing country like Sri Lanka, because they're more worried on aspects like, marriage again and pregnancy and stuff like that. So, um, I hope this is not rude, but have you personally faced such
Yeah.
things?
Um, so, in my second job, um, soon after I joined, I was getting married. Um, and then um, I think like a year later, I was having a baby, like pregnant, and uh, my boss actually, well, we're still good friends. He's Singaporean. My boss back then kind of casually told me, "Oh, if you're going away for 3 months, why would I need you back at all?" And that was a disaster. I got so scared and so worried, that I actually came back to work in 1 month, although I had 3 months of paid maternity leave. In fact, to show that everything was cool, um, I had my daughter on Christmas Day. So I worked till the 24th because we had a Christmas party and all that. I even came for that. Christmas Day, I had my daughter. And on the 1st of January, usually, you know how companies have these celebrations and Kiri Utrala speeches and the whole works. So actually, 5 days later, I went to work. I had a C-section, so I was plastered up, stitched, and all that, but I still went to work, as in I didn't go to work. I went for that day to take part in all these festivities of the first day. And thereafter, I kind of came into work once a week during that month, once, twice, sometimes, depending on, right? And thereafter, I came back to sort of full time work, for a few hours at least every day, though, Monday to Friday. And that was just the fear of uh, losing my job, I would say. But what was great for me was that I had this amazing, amazing support system. My mother in law is also incidentally born on the same day, 25th of December. So,
Wow.
yeah, so I've kind of had so many people that could have advised, looked after, and helped and supported me. So it was easy for me to, also focus on my career because of the support I had, especially from my husband.
Absolutely. And I think to anyone who's watching this, it might look like I'm, hating on men. No, that's that's not what I'm doing. These are real problems that
It
women
is.
face.
It
And
is.
there could be someone out there who might be having these problems, and Madam's words would be very, it's like a comfort to the ears. So, since we are in the whole topic of feminism and, about women, I don't think the question really revolves around women. It also goes back to men. And there's many men out there who are very supportive and who really see the potential. Like you said, your father, husband, they are very, like, they build that support system for us. Now, I feel like these kind of things must be planted in a young man's mind. And when they grow up, they'll give more opportunities to women and empower them. What are your thoughts about this?
You've got that right 100%. So, actually, I believe it all starts with this whole situation in the house, of parents when they're thinking of having babies and they want to have boys, or they expect boys, they start making all the clothes in blue. And if they like girls, then even before the child is born, they start making everything in pink. And then when the birthdays come around, it's like for the girls, a little Barbie doll in pink, and for the boys, it's like a little car in blue, right? So children grow up with this whole thing of, okay, I'm a girl, I'm a boy. And then in the household, it can be like, okay, the little boys watch the fathers, and if they come back after work and they're watching TV and not really helping to do any household chores or helping the mom, whereas the mom is also a working woman who has worked and come back but has to do the homework, has to do the cooking, has to do the housework, and all that. Kids watch, they learn from their parents, right? And then boys will end up doing what their fathers do, while the girls will accept it and say, okay, this is how it is, because they watch their fathers not help their mothers. So they'll think, okay, when I get married, or I get bossed around by the male species, right? So they think that. So the place to change all that really is in the house, in the household. Why not yellow? Why not purple or something? And why pink and blue, right? And why not something pink for the boys, blue for the, or you do pink and blue. It doesn't matter, right? So it's girl, boy, whatever.
Right.
So I think that's where it starts. Nowadays, I see a couple of advertisements that don't really kind of focus on uh, the girls doing the home chores and the boys not, right? So that's a great thing, because otherwise everything signals that story, right? Even all the advertisements you see, women are doing all the work and that kind of thing. So these things are subtle messages to say how we should behave in society and how we should be. And I'm glad that that is changing now. It's evolving, and therefore the space becomes a space where it's more tolerant and accepting of males, females equally. In workplaces as well, there's lots of programs now that sort of focus on bringing that equality around. In fact, I'm supporting and on the advisory board of a young female entrepreneur that has a company called Parenthood Global. And they have like fathers conference, mums conferences, and a lot of activity around it. And that's actually focusing on an advocacy for saying that it's great, it's be a parent, and to discuss parents, what kind of challenges they go through, problems they go through, how to support parents in the workplace, and all of that, right? Organizations also have now, and I a dialogue actually, because I have a lot of young people working with me. Then I always had these support groups called employee resource group. So we had a ERG for women, especially,
Right.
right, moms,
Right.
so that they get together and talk about what works for them, and
Right.
propose to management, and then we can look at how we can change things for them, right?
Mm.
Because they know best the problems and the answers also, they also have the answers.
Right.
So that kind of thing, right? So now the workplace is changing, and my thing is this: if you are not being heard, you have to push through, right? Once and to be fair, from the other side of it, women also have to be not always like, oh, I can't work late now, it's 4:30, I have to go home, and my mom's coming to pick me up, my boyfriend doesn't like me work, my husband doesn't like me going to this party, if there's a office party, all those things are also not right. If
That's
you
true.
want to be equal, you have to be equal in every way,
That's
right?
true.
You can't suddenly, like, I have excuses, but other times, women's rights and I'm a feminist. You can't be that way. So you have to, if you don't have a stigma about being a female and expecting like special concessions or whatever, the men treat you with that much respect. And they really don't. So even for me, even when I was 20 something years old, back then, the boys didn't make any difference. They accepted me. So in fact, we used to, like, in our free time, we used to play cricket with the foot rule and little paper balls when we had nothing to do
Right.
inside the office, right? And they always had me come over and, like, I was one of the boys. They never said, oh, you're a girl, so you have to stay away, don't do that, don't do nothing like that. Absolutely nothing at all. In fact, super protective if there were other boys looking around from anywhere, super protective. So they are absolutely fantastic allies. I mean, even, when I joined Slascom and, going up to be the first female chair of Slascom, it was my past chairs who are all men who proposed and said, we need to have a female chair, and Sandra should be the person. And I was like, no, but various excuses, but they're like, no way, we're supporting this, right? So it's like, especially in tech, there's absolutely no problem at all. I don't think people even think about, oh, this is a girl, this is a boy. Doesn't cross anyone's mind, really. So I think we also, as females, need to be up to the task. We can't be picking and choosing when we want to be a girl and when we want to be don't want to be one, right? And then you have equal amount of respect. If ever you think that there was somebody who's being not very supportive, I think you should call it out. You should call it out. So being bold, uh, being heard, pushing through, I think are things that women should do equally, as much as men do. Because one of the things that probably won't change, and perhaps it's because of the way women are in the way we have set up, is that we are never satisfied and happy unless we give 110% and we do 110. So when you do 110, you're like, I think I've done my best. But for men, that's a little different. They can do 75, 80 and think they've done 110 or 100 and be very happy, right? So it's that level of confidence and comfort. For women, I think it's because they are mothers, they are caregivers. They have this sort of guilty feeling and emotion of like going the extra mile and not enough if you don't do that, right? And always doubting and saying, have I done my best? Is this good enough? Right? So it's just a natural kind of phenomena, but it's not something that we should pay attention to. We should be the
Right.
same. We should be happy doing 80 and saying, I've done my very best.
Right.
And, there are times when you can do 110, you can do 80, 100, but it's all okay.
Right.
Not to do substandard work, but it's okay that you don't all the time, every time, always go the extra mile. Yeah?
That's so true, and I think it's very relatable. This whole conversation. As a girl, I've seen my mom, the maternal instincts coming out, and how protective they are, and that whole guilty feeling. And since we spoke about young men, I also want to touch on the fact that you said girls are always pink and boys are towards the blue side, and the other thing that we see is when we see a little boy crying, we would say, "Oh, don't cry like a girl."
Yeah.
That and the whole suppressing of men's emotions, I feel like is very bad, very harmful for them, and that might come out later in a very bad way. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I agree with you. I don't hear many people saying don't cry like a girl anymore. But
Right.
I think I've heard that many, many years ago. I think going 20, 30 years back, I've heard that as well. Um yeah, I mean, I think I used to, like, my dad used to say, okay, stop crying and now get on with it. So I think when my daughter was crying when she was little, I don't know whether that was right or wrong, but I told her as well, like, don't cry, get on with it, kind of thing. um you know Maybe there's an idea of saying crying, showing emotion is a sign of weakness, but I understand now very well that that's not the case. um Emotions are emotions. You can laugh, you can cry, you can have it all, and that's being very natural and being normal. So if I was to go back to that 26-year-old young mother, I would probably have told my daughter, it's okay, cry, laugh, cry as much as you want, which I didn't. But it's how you figure yourself out, because it could be that you don't cry in public but you cry in private, or you cry in public as well. But I think I'm a very emotional person, and now, back then when I was younger, I felt it was a sign of weakness and I shouldn't cry in public. But to me now, it doesn't matter at all. I just cry for everything. I just cry for nothing as well. But it's just a way of showing emotion, actually. So, yeah, I think it's just good to be yourself, good to show the kind of person you are. good to show emotion, whichever the way it goes.
Right. I think sadness is also just a part of being a human, whether
Yeah,
it's a girl or a boy.
yeah.
Right. So, going back to 16-year-old Sandra, the way I see it, it's like a little pearl that's inside the shell, waiting to be discovered. But she was fierce enough to do it herself. She opened up herself up and discovered herself. What would you say to this little 16-year-old Sandra now?
Okay, so actually, the 16-year-old or before, and a little after, I was always somebody who, and I probably it's because of the way my parents brought me up. They were like really cool with, they encouraged me to do anything and everything, right? So there was nothing I didn't do. Gymnastics had first started out in Sri Lanka when I was, I don't know, 12 maybe. And I went to do gymnastics. Apart from it, like ballet and, art and I don't know, anything and everything possible.
I was a
Uh,
gymnast myself.
oh, you did? Okay,
Yes.
that's cool. So choir and, everything, drama, all of it, right? And that kind of made me a very, because I went into all these groups of different people back in school, I made me a very friendly, collaborative, outgoing, and I was very comfortable with any and every one, right? Whether it be English medium, Sinhalese medium, older girls, younger girls, whoever. And I think that was good for me. So the way I see it, um, the younger self, the only thing I would have said is maybe I should have, I don't know, maybe I should have focused just a little bit more on being more serious about when it came to the exams to kind of, I don't know, it may not be wrong, to try and nail a 90 to 100, but I was always very pragmatic. So it's like have fun, do that, do this, do everything, but make sure you get through. So, if the pass mark is 75, then between 75 and 80 is good enough, you know. I don't need to aim for the 100, because that's a lot more extra effort. I can do this with less effort. So I was like that. So I would not say it's right or wrong really, uh, because the advice I can give people, younger people, is there's no right or wrong, and you don't have to compare yourself with anybody else, because your journey, you own your journey, right? And there's no too old or too young. Uh, in fact, when I first set out, I set out to do on a career, because I was like really keen on getting to the workplace, wearing the high heels and putting the makeup on and carrying a handbag, wearing sari. I had all these things that I was just crazy over, right? I was just dying to get to the workplace. So I started focusing more on you know, the academic side of it much later on in life. Um, yeah, so I mean, when I did one master's, I felt like, oh, this is easy. I need to do the second, and then it's like, oh, now what am I going to do? I'm bored. Like, let's do another, and I did like a third master's, and then I was like, oh, now I need to be doing some other thing, and so then I started doing different things, Scrum, then Lean Six Sigma, Black Belt, and then I started on like a Agile Enterprise Coaching certification program, which I finished like about a couple of weeks back only. And now I'm thinking of course, in between I went to, IIT in India and did this entrepreneurship and AI program for 2 months. So I'm like busy doing a lot of stuff, which is to keep it's interesting. We just keep learning all the time, and learning becomes interesting. So, maybe not all of us, when you're in school, find education and learning and studying interesting. It can be like annoying and boring.
Right.
But for others, it's not, right? They love it, even when you're like fairly young.
Definitely.
But you later on find that, when you're older, you can still find passion for it on your own, not because your parents say so or something, right? Which was the case for me. And now I can't stop. I'm just thinking, what shall I do next? Because it's just great to continue to um, you know learn something new. uh, Also push yourself to the limits, because I believe that you can you need to try to be the best that you can possibly be, and that means you just try to push yourself. Yeah.
Right. I think that's really, really important to keep note of that. And since we got into this whole corporate life, um, I think from the very get go, you noticed the importance of the customer. You know, be it customer experience or customer service, and sadly, that's something many companies tend to miss because they focus on the product itself. That they tend to forget. Okay, what does the customer want? So, why is customer experience so important in today's digital economy?
um, See, in today's world, the power is with the customer. The customer
Mm,
knows more than, see, even in advertising, you can no longer advertise and say, buy my product, it's good, it's the best, it's the cheapest, it's the biggest, or whatever, right? It's a place where your customer can tell you more about your product, because they go and look at peer reviews and they go and research and they learn. Most often, customers know exactly what they want. You don't really have to tell them. So, the thing then that's left is for you to be able to be honest, for you to be able to be solutions oriented, not product focused to sell something, to really understand truly what the customer's need is, and then to see if you can satisfy that need. And going beyond that, they have a simple expectations. Maybe they want you to do something fast, easy, simple, in a simple way, quicker, to get them, whatever it is that they want, right, out of your product or service. And you have to be able to give them that. And when you fail, you have to also be able to acknowledge that and quickly put it right, because at the end of the
definitely.
day, customers have many options and they can switch, and they will only stay with you if they still find value. And the way to find value is to be able to continue to give them what they want, to meet their expectations, and now to be able to go beyond that, to preempt what they may need thereafter, and to be able to satisfy those needs. And if that is the case, and if you're providing your customers a good experience, in keeping with their expectations or a little bit more, then I think customers are happy to stay. And that's why experience is important. It's not a side by the way thing. It is the product. This is how you experience the product or the service, right? So it's very fundamental that everybody focuses on customers' experience. Similarly, I think organizations are also a product, and they need to also focus on employees having a great experience in the workplace. So it's also equally good to focus on employee experience, because customer experience and employee experience are two sides of the same coin, I believe. You can't achieve one without the other.
Absolutely, absolutely. And since we touched a bit about adding value to the customer, I think we have to make a right balance between technology with a bit of human touch. And that's how we can really touch the customer. So, how does this process make the product more meaningful to the customer?
So I always advocated, when digital transformation started out, a little over a decade ago, about humanizing digital care, right?
Mm,
Even now, I mean, with all these conversations about AI,
mm,
and how AI will replace a lot of the jobs and take away a lot of the jobs, and all of that, the fact is that it's still artificial in intelligence, right? And that's why it's called AI. And
mm.
there's still a little distance to go, a few more years, before we actually start seeing AI and perhaps humanoids, that we see now, getting to the emotional side of it. So there are things which, like human beings are good at, and there's stuff that AI is really good at. When you think of agentic AI, kind of supporting and augmenting customer service, delivery or management, right? So, what I think is important is for us to make sure that we focus on a customer journey, figure out which are the parts that are straightforward, quick, simple, which can be augmented through AI, and which are the parts in a customer's journey which are more complex, which require, at this point in time, still a human being to be involved, For instance, understanding emotion. If somebody is in distress, if they're crying, if they're sad, if they're unhappy, AI at this point in time can't, figure all of that out. And so it's good for a human being to be in that part of the customer's journey. So I think it's just how we build and augment technology to support and enhance human beings to be more efficient, to work alongside the human beings to make it make life so much better for us in every way, at the workplace, in the home front, in your personal lives, whatever, right? Technology is so interwoven with the human life, you can't really separate it out ever anymore. And so you shouldn't fight it, you should embrace it and make the best out of it.
So, we see this whole idea of customer being king being revolved since a long time, and companies know this, that customer is the king. But when it comes to practically executing this, there can be places where things go wrong, and companies follow trends and compete with competitors, and that's needed. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes that really fails companies from addressing the real customer problem. What do you think about this?
So, anyway, as I said, it's power to the customer. The customer decides what they want, who they want to buy from, who they want to grow. Uh, and it's, well, for one thing, I'd say, why is it king? Why not queen too? The customer can be queen, right?
That's so
Not
cool.
not just the customer is king. But I think that's something that will never change. Um, well, the customer is always right, even when he's wrong, he's right. It's the way you manage to handle it. I mean, you can, sometimes you may be doing wrong, but you have to be honest to be able to apologize and rectify the situation. Sometimes customers are super unreasonable because they think by shouting and screaming and going on social media and kind of talking negatively about your product or service will give them like extra free something or complimentary something and stuff like that.
Mm,
That can happen as well. So you just need to call it out. I mean, when you're dealing with a situation, there's an emotional, rational side. And then you just need to figure out whether you're appealing to the emotional mind or the rational mind. Now, if somebody's screeching and screaming at you because they're so angry, they are emotional. At that point, you can't talk to them rationally. So you're better off apologizing, even if they were wrong. You'd apologize on behalf of your company, then they settle down a little bit. And when they are more emotionally stable, you can have a rational conversation.
right.
Sometimes, depending on the situation, it may not be anger, it may be fear or grief, right?
Mm,
Someone close to you died and whatever, right? Or is very sick. So, if it's in a situation of fear or grief or something, then maybe you don't want to be so rational. Even if they are wrong, you might just think that you'd want to deal with the emotional hat and the empathetic hat.
mm,
Even if you are right and they are wrong, you may still want to go out and give them something, or see to it that they find comfort where you can, because you're being sympathetic at this point in time. And that might later pay off, because when they are more stable, they may go around, speak so well about your product or your service or your company, or about the people that serve them, and say, I was being unreasonable, I was being emotional, and they still you know um, recognize that emotion, and I got what I wanted, or they sorted out my problem or something like that. And when that happens, it's a good place to be. And there you find an advocate and a customer for life, who may
mm,
just bring you a lot more customers, right? So it depends, but I think you have to always um, have a balanced view of not being only emotional, not being only rational, and always be reasonable, never be unreasonable. And
mm,
that way, I think you. So, what I call it is really, you know, thinking about it from using your heart as well, because at the end of the day, we are all human beings, and we are emotional creatures. So we need to be able to apply rationality and also apply, look at the decision from a heart point of view. And then if you're being reasonable, then I think you should go ahead and do whatever that you think is best.
That's so true, and I think something really interesting I saw on TikTok was this TikToker who was saying that he's a food reviewer, and many people reach out to him because he does it in a very interesting way, in a father point of view. So he was saying how like if he gets some food, a place, if they reach out and he ends up not liking the product, instead of making a negative video on it, he would rather just comment personally and not make a video.
Yeah,
And
wonderful.
because he himself is running a restaurant, and he was saying how one single negative Google review can affect a company.
Yeah,
So
so
that's really interesting.
true.
So this whole conversation has been very deep and meaningful and controversial.
Ah,
So let's chill down a little bit. So we have a rapid fire segment lined up called Tech Bits. So the rules are very simple: 3 seconds to answer and maximum of 3 words.
oh my gosh. This has to be the most challenging part of the session for me because I can't keep it short. All right, let's go for it.
So ready?
Yeah,
All right. So let's start off easy. Remote work or office work?
remote.
Startup life or corporate life?
Now, startup life.
Technical skills or people skills?
Both.
Right. Most dangerous phrase in tech. It's a quick fix or it works on my machine.
Oh, I'm not really sure.
Right.
Yeah, it depends on, I think, the situation.
Work life balance, myth or reality?
Myth, really. You just need to find your own balance.
Um, Explaining blockchain to your grandma or explaining TikTok to your CEO?
Blockchain to your grandma.
That's interesting. Dark mode or light mode?
Sorry, what was it? Dark?
Dark mode or light mode?
Depends on the time of day.
Right. More meetings or more emails?
Both are horrible.
That's very honest. Degree or self learning?
I think both. You need a bit of both. It's good to have a formal degree in the older days, but I think going forward into the future, self learning is the best way to go
Right,
around it.
right. So, since we've come back to the whole topic of degree and university life, um, what skills do you think? So, I think we had a very interesting segment. I should mention that it was very fun. So, coming back to university students, do you think what other skills should university students be focusing on beyond technical knowledge?
Mm. So I think mm people relational skills are always important because no
Mm,
matter what, uh, we live around human beings, and therefore those skills are very important.
mm,
Um, Creative skills are really important as well. Um, yeah, so there's so many, but most around creativity and relational skills, I think, are really good.
right. So let's talk a bit about your startup. And I think even before that, I think you've been a good leader, an inspiring leader, not just for women, for men, and a large workforce at Dialogue. So, what are some good qualities of a good leader?
Okay, so the fundamentally you need to understand that leadership is not about being on the top. It's more about being at the bottom, being able to push forward your whole team and your organization along.
Mm,
That's number one. Number two, leaders are human beings and the rest of your team are very human. So if there's something that you don't like, you don't want, you don't accept, then you should understand that that would be the same for all the other human beings that work in your team.
mm,
So it is important to be able to walk the talk, as they say. And it's important to take your team along. Um, when there are problems or mistakes, or you have to take the brunt of it, um, you shouldn't pass blame on any one of your team members. You should be the one responsible for accepting that blame, or whatever it was. But when there is credit that is due, it's always great and good to pass the credit to your team, rather than sort of say me and myself and I did it all and I'm a great leader or whatever, right? So leadership can be quite overrated, depending on if you think of yourself as a wonderful, fabulous, great, I'm good, I'm great, I'm wonderful, and I'm super lead or whatever. Um, Really, what it is, just be um, there for people, be able to give the right kind of guidance, advice, support, and your team will support you. So it's about being able to support them, help them. And if you are able to, make leaders out of others, support them in their journey to also fulfill their career and personal aspirations and ambitions in life, to be able to support it, then I think you're being a balanced leader.
Right. Thank you so much, Madam Sandra, for joining us today. I think we had a really deep and meaningful conversation, and I personally think I had a lot of takeaways, and it must have been really inspiring to young women and young men out there. So, any final thoughts?
Other than wishing all of you a great, fabulous future, you're entering a fantastic workplace.
Thank
It's
you.
never been more fun and interesting and challenging, and those are all good things. So, yeah, welcome to the workplace, and look forward to seeing you in that space.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And that's the kind of energy we're bringing into Cutting Edge 2026. A constant reminder that you are more than what you think you are, pushing beyond every known boundary. I'll see you there.